Welcome to Partners Beyond Parenthood, the podcast that helps new parents thrive without losing themselves. My name is Saba Bazuner, and in today's episode, we're joined by the talented and lovely Rue Spence. But who better to introduce themselves than the one and only? Take it away.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Rue Spence. I am a multi-hyphenate millennial woman. I am first and foremost kind of why we're here, mom and wife, but I also am a business owner. I own the podcasting agency Sonivia, and I also own Good Moment Goods, which is an apparel line for moms. So really excited to be here.
Wow, I love the name. That sounds awesome. And have yourself a serial entrepreneur here. That sounds so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I would love to hear a little bit more about how you went from a theater background into social work for starters, and then going into podcasting.
Well, we don't quite have that long, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So starting off, I always had a passion for theater, and I really enjoy like the backstage, actually, what makes it run more than acting. Acting was never like, you guys have fun with that. I'm a backstage girly. I'm a stage manager. It's because I'm a type A Virgo, and that was a really great place for that energy to thrive. But to pay my bills, I was a social worker. I actually helped families with mostly children, but people in their lives with disabilities get in-home services set up. So that's a really big passion for me. Equity in all things, but especially for people with disabilities is something that's really important to me. And then I moved overseas with my husband, so I really had to re-identify myself. And like so many people in 2020, I started a podcast. I'd long been a podcast listener. I, for my social work job, drove hours a day. There were only so many audiobooks I could listen to, so I found podcasts. Me and one of my best friends started a podcast, and I was like, I have a theater background. I know audio. I can figure this out. But I really couldn't, because all of the resources that I found were really geared towards what we traditionally think of as men's voices. So voices in that lower register that I'm like, cool, let me YouTube University. I'm going to be awesome at this. And then I did everything to a T, and we sounded like we were speaking into tin cans in a 1940s submarine. I was like, this is trash. And so I had to work twice as hard, which is the story of our lives as women. Mm-hmm. And, as the pandemic changed, I won't say went away because we're still living it.
True.
But as it changed and things opened up, my friend was able to go back to work and didn't have as much time for the podcast. But by that point, the bug had bitten me. And I was just so passionate about helping other people, especially women, especially non-binary people, create good sounding podcasts. It's like I didn't go through all of this work to learn how to make us sound good to then just be like, okay, well, that was a fun pandemic hobby. And I started doing some freelance and editing for other shows and just, continuing to really hone those skills. And then I had people starting to reach out to me, and they were like, hey, I want help with this. And cool, that's great. Can you do this for me? And it just kind of became something. We moved back to the States. I had my daughter Olivia in September of 2022. And at the same time was actually launching this as a full scale thing, which was crazy, and I 0 out of 10 recommend birthing a baby and a business in the same moment. But I did it, and
congrats.
And so yeah, thank you. I'm gonna go gray really soon, I think.
I doubt it.
But yeah, so that was really how that started. Was just kind of those broad strokes of life just taking us, I think, where we're meant to be. My husband's in the military, so we've moved twice since then. And so we're a little bit all over, and yeah, I'm doing my best to run businesses while navigating solo parenting a lot of the time when he's in the field and doing that kind of stuff, and just doing my best I think we all are as moms. So
always. And it's always a struggle. Essentially it sounds like you had twins, right? Your own baby and then the business baby. Well, first of all, again, incredible that you've been able to manage not just one business, but you're juggling quite a few, which is incredible. You gave birth after you moved back. Where are the two places that you moved to?
Yeah, so I was actually pregnant in Germany. That's where we found out. And I had a few appointments over there. That was a really big culture shock. And then we ended up in South Carolina, and now we're in Colorado.
So you've moved twice. Where were you living before you went to Germany?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Kansas City, Missouri. That's home for me, always is. And that's where my husband and I met. He was actually finishing up school as a cadet. And from there, he was like, either this is a thing or it's not, because I got to go to Germany. And I hopped on board. So
And you got married before, or did you get married?
We got married like 11 months after we met in true military fashion.
Wow.
And yeah, it was literally like a year to the date of our first date that we wheels up were moving to a different continent. So, but it worked.
When you first met and you found out that he was essentially going to live the military life, which is moving around quite a bit, is that something that attracted you to, like, was that something attractive to you, or how did you perceive that?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. So I was in an interesting time in my life. I was just getting out of a really serious relationship, and I was definitely Tinder hopping. I was like, I want to feel young and exuberant and meet new people. And I was not looking to catch feelings, which is a testament to how great my husband is. I went on a first date, and I went, I was staying with my family at that point. And I was like, I think I'm in trouble. Like, I don't really like this guy. I was just looking to, like, have some fun and go on some cute dates. And, we fell really hard and fast. And I was really wary of the military lifestyle. Like I said, I was really established in Kansas City. That's where I was doing theater, so I was really tapped into that community. I had a career. I was really established. And the military lifestyle had not been attractive to me. I had a lot of the preconceived notions of, like, what the 80s military was, a lot more like that, very stringent, and because I had some family who served while I was growing up, and that was kind of my understanding of it, and that's very much not who I am, and learning that that's not necessarily who my husband is, that, he still has a lot of creative passions. He likes to write poetry and, like, that kind of stuff. And, like, okay, if I'm going to do the military lifestyle, I can do it because I'm doing it with you. So it was really that I would follow him to hell and high water. And, if that meant the military lifestyle, then that's what that meant.
Okay. Did you always know that you wanted a family?
Yes. Yeah. No, I've always envisioned that for myself.
And him being a part of the military, and I guess you also having the experience of being in Germany, especially in a really, really special or very different time, right, during the pandemic. Did that ever hinder you from actually thinking, like, oh, do I want to move forward with this?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It hindered me in the way of not being sure that I was equipped for it. My husband is a Black man, and there was so much tension that really came to a boiling point in 2020, as we all remember. And, there was a lot of work that I have tried to do as a white person to make sure that I am equipped to raise safe Black children in the country, in the landscape. And, I have the double whammy that my daughter is a woman of color. And so she gets to have the woman side of things and the Black side of things that, a lot of rights are under attack for people like her. And so me really making sure that I am doing the work to try and set her up for the most successful life that she can have.
That's admirable. I love that. But yeah, no, I mean, I can imagine that's really tough. I myself grew up in many different countries. My father was not a part of the military. I guess it's still a bit different, but it was still diplomatic in the sense that we were moving every 4 or so years. So the longest I lived anywhere was 6 years in my life. And that's also from country to country. That in my part has actually really, made it very boring to stay in one place.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So after a few years, I'm like, oh, what else is out there, right? But it's also fostered a lot of open-mindedness. So as it's fostered that, I've also thought, okay, having this kind of lifestyle, be it military, diplomatic lifestyle, it's really made me think about values. And I'd be curious to hear your point on that. Is that something that you and your husband spoke a lot about in terms of values? I mean, I already see that you're really trying to, speak up for women of color and just make sure that there's more equity or equality in that. But how did you communicate that to your husband?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's honestly like part of what attracted us to each other. We both have really intentional backgrounds with activism work. He was really involved in like labor equity in his younger pre-military era. And then, I come from a queer background. I actually had lesbian parents. And so that type of equality has always been really important to me, that I think it wasn't even something that we sat down and we were like, let's talk about rights and how are we going to raise our kids. But I think like from day one, that was just something that we've both been so loudly passionate about that it was like, this is just a no-brainer to us that we're going to do the work for as many demographics as we can, whether it's, retail workers, whether it's queer people, whether it's women, whether it's people of color. Like there's, so many demographics that we believe need to be uplifted.
Well, I love the fact that both of you are coming together from a place of passion of, moving things forward for our society. So already there, it sounds like you guys have good communication. You guys have very similar values. Knowing how the lifestyle is, and I think you've also mentioned before that, you move around, etc. But how often do you get to see him?
So we moved to Colorado in February, and this is definitely the highest pace that we've had. He's gone probably about 40% of the time right now. But yeah, it's definitely tough because I'm accustomed to seeing him more, and he's one of my top favorite people.
Yeah.
So that part is tough, and it's tough to know that he's missing out on some moments with our daughter. And it's also tough to know that I am getting all of the moments with our daughter.
Right. That's exactly what was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a lot of it feels like you're a solo mother, especially if he's gone that often, which again, when work calls, you can't really do anything about it. How do you find time to make sure that, there are moments to connect with not just him, but for him to connect with your daughter as well?
A lot of it is just being really intentional, making sure that we're assessing how we're using our time. It's like, okay, smartphone's down, TV off, we're in Colorado. It's beautiful here. Like, let's go hike. Let's go get out and do. So just being really intentional that it's like when we do have time together, we're taking time together. So, he's getting some really good quality time. He's about to be at a conference for like 2 weeks. So we try and really make the time that we are together count doubly, so that it's like girl math, right? It's like if we spend like twice as much time together when we're together, then that half as much time when we're not together doesn't feel as intense of a chasm.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the actual solo parenting part of it. And I want to hear that in line with the business as well, because managing a business and raising a baby or a child is, it's work. How have you been able to manage that with so much time of just being yourself?
I don't know. Interview over. No, a lot of it is just, the advice that I give, and everyone loves when people give new moms advice, right? But the advice that I give is just to find a wealth of grace for yourself. That, every day I believe you do your best. And some days my best is story time and arts and crafts, and we go for a hike and we bake cookies and we do all of the things. And that is my best. And then there are days where my best is Miss Rachel, mommy's under headphones, I'm editing, I'm working with clients, and I go, I should probably warm the chicken nuggets up before I feed them to you. And there are days where that is my best. And, I think that so much of the have it all myth is that you are supposed to maintain a baseline of perfection in all things. And so I think that having an exorbitant amount of grace for yourself is the only way to not go under, especially when you're trying to do all of the things. And all the things look like a lot of different things. There are moms who are doing all of the things in corporate. There are moms who are doing all of the things by being a stay-at-home mom, by being an entrepreneur. Whatever you're doing all the things is, that is hard. And I think that there's so much like air of competition that's manufactured. And I think a lot of that comes from, well, if I can project, then no one's going to see that I'm floundering. Whereas I think that if we can just all be like, hey, this is really hard. And even if your lifestyle looks completely different from mine, we can both commiserate over how many goldfish are crunched into our kids' car seats right now.
Yeah. I agree. I think we could all do a lot better just, admitting that stuff is hard and not just playing behind this camera saying, oh, look how perfect my life is or how easy I can make it seem. But definitely agree. And I love that that's also what you're trying to do, bring more voices to women and non-binary people and just, have more voices out there, because exactly that is going to invite people to speak out more about it and not just have the social media perfection. So when did you decide that that was something you wanted to lean into, like that part of podcasting?
I mean, honestly, it was so natural to me, like I said, with not having resources available. And that climate has changed a lot. There are a lot of other incredible women doing that work. Katie Steckley is a great resource. Anna over at the podcast space, I can't think of her full name. There's a lot of women that are really doing powerful things. But that was not so much the case when I got started. And I think that that's a lot of why those other women got called to do that as well. And so for me, it was just, like I think so many startups, it's solving the problem that I had. I didn't have a podcasting quote unquote big sister to be like, hey, this is how you make a higher register voice not sound like garbage. And so for me, that call was the need to amplify our voices. A soapbox that I can get on is that there's like this, oh, all women do is talk. There was that whole like Academy Award winning film called Women Talking. But the moment that we commodify our voices, that goes away. We make up less than 30% of the podcasting industry. And I think that there's just way too many guys talking about dude bro stuff. And it's like, so if we're going to get called gossips, if we're going to get told that we talk too much, let's make money. Let's make an impact and let's create a community. And so that's really why that is important to me. I think that women should take up a reflective demographic of podcasting as we do the population. I don't think that that's a big ask.
Amen. Done.
Ta-da!
I want to dig in a little bit deeper. In terms of time management, how would you say your day, let's say a week, how does a week look like for you, or a day? That's easier.
Yeah. So I really try and prioritize working in the gaps that, nap times or after bedtimes, those little moments of filler. That's really where I try and find work. Trying to prioritize my daughter and putting her and my energy into her first. And then letting work kind of be the sand that trickles to fill the spots. So that's a big part of it. On like a actual calendar basis, though, that really looks like being intentional with spending the morning with her. We do breakfast together, hang out in lots of cuddles, and then kind of we divide and conquer for a little bit. I'm like, cool, you go do some independent play, get your puzzles out, that kind of stuff. And I work on a project. The hardest part for me and the thing that I really struggle with the most is how single-minded a lot of my work is. Like when I'm doing an edit, I'm under headphones, focused on one thing. It's not multitasking. You're not also, taking a call, answering an email. You are in the sauce. And that's the hardest part for me, I think, is just having other, admin tasks and other elements that have to go into it. Honestly, one of the biggest gifts that I gave myself this year that has helped with my time management is bringing on another independent contractor to help edit. And getting to give another job to another woman.
Okay.
So that still checks a box for me. I'm like, okay, I'm still, doing that even if I start to let go of some of the really intense parts. But that's been a really big gift to myself. And I think that for business owners, being able to outsource some tasks is incredibly helpful. And honestly, if it wasn't for outsourcing tasks, I wouldn't have a job. So...
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially buying back some of your time, right? Which
exactly
super necessary and helpful. And for the other times, is your daughter going to a daycare? Do you have a nanny, or how does that work?
It's all me. It's all me all the time. We're kind of on an island out here. I have a really wonderful family network back in Kansas City, which is about a 9-hour drive. Being from the Midwest, that's nothing. That's a day trip. But yeah, so when I'm in really intense periods, I will sometimes go home, or I'll have some family come out and stay with us.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm able to really have like an SOS flare go up. But for the most part, day to day, it's just us until my husband gets home, which is around dinner time. And then we do bedtime and rinse, repeat.
Wow. So I'm still baffled. How many hours can you dedicate a certain amount of hours per day towards business, or does it just really depend on how it goes?
It just really depends. There are some days where, my daughter is thrilled to just read a book to herself, and I love that. And then there are other days where she is like attached, and so it really flows. And so something that I talk to my clients about is like, I need a longer turnaround time. Like if you really need something back, like ASAP Rocky, we're going to be in trouble. Because for me to do my best work, to serve my clients the best, I need to be able to build in a day where my kid's just not having it. And we just have to go to the park.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that's something that has also changed. You know, when she was a newborn, in my experience, and every kid and every mom is different, I would take newborn in a heartbeat. You know, toddler is built different. That era is so different.
Yeah.
So much more hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were like 3 things that she was upset about when she was a newborn.
Yeah.
And she slept. And now it's, you know, we have a full-scale meltdown because it's the blue cup, not the red cup.
Right. There's opinions all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to jump off of things and wound herself and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to work a lot more and in a lot longer chunks when she was smaller. When she had like 3-hour naps a day. Oh my God, that was great.
Yeah.
And now I fight for my life to get her to go down for 45 minutes. You know, so how much I've been able to work has changed a lot. And there are a lot of times where we get her down and, you know, when my husband's home, I can be like, you're on bedtime duty. I have to get this project out.
Okay.
And so I pull a lot of late nights. That's honestly a big chunk for me that's in uninterrupted time, which is really magical.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of late nights in this season. And the other thing is I'm really fortunate to have a full client load, which I'm really grateful for, that, you know, I will occasionally chat with some new folk and just see kind of, you know, if I can support them. But trying to find a bandwidth that works for me. And that comes from a point of privilege. I know that there are a lot of people who are like, well, I have to work 60 hours at a law firm or, you know, whatever that looks like, that they don't have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm really in a maintenance phase right now with my business, as opposed to trying to grow exponentially. We are a team one and done family. My daughter is going to be an only child. And so I'm really intentional about how much these years, when she is with me 100% of the time, matter.
Yeah.
That, you know, if my business stagnates, remains where it is, and I don't say stagnates with any judgment, it's just a baseline. If it stays here for 2 years, I will be grateful and blessed and happy and thriving. But if that time with my daughter stagnates for 2 years, I've lost it forever.
Yeah.
I can't get it back. And so, you know, not overburdening myself with extra projects feels really good right now.
I love that mindset. It seems very healthy. I think a lot of people can get lost in trying to, you know, work a lot on the business, because you kind of get lost in that, especially if you're spending a lot of time with a little one, where, especially by yourself, I've noticed things are a little bit easier when you have your partner around, because at least then you have adult stimulation. You're not just, you know, talking baby talk, and time goes by a little bit faster, at least in my experience. That said, you have a very balanced way of living through this, it seems. And yet you still find time or the motivation to not just work on one business, but more. Where do you think that comes from, and how do you manage that?
That comes from just the high octane Virgo. It's honestly, it's something that I'm working on. Is to be comfortable sitting. I would really like to sit and enjoy a lot more, and that's really something that I am trying to call in and manifest for myself. But it is definitely a growth point for me to learn how to be comfortable in inertia.
Mm-hmm. Do you think any of that has to do with you wanting to be a role model for your daughter as well?
I think a lot of it does. And I think that there is a lot of that for a lot of parents, you know, I didn't grow up wealthy. I grew up very far from that. And so wanting to be able to provide her opportunities that I didn't have, and, you know, start building generational wealth and send her to a good school, like all of those things that I think we so often talk about. I absolutely think that that's part of it, is, you know, wanting to create opportunities for her. And yeah, a lot of it is that, and a lot of it probably is my own trauma. I lost one of my parents when I was really young, and so kind of having that timeline of like, I've seen the thread of life, and I want to make sure that I pack as much into it in the amount of time that I'm given. That's probably a lot of it too.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss, even if it happened so long ago, but I'm sure that had a lot of impact. Like you said, trauma definitely comes up, and it is a cycle, right? A lot of people either you live through it, you work through it, but you can also see sometimes how it's modeled through your own parenting, hopefully often for the better, which in this case it seems like it is, so that's awesome. And seeing that from the past of, also your desire and just your persona, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your clothing line that you've been working on.
Oh, yeah. So I'm really excited about this, and I backed into it sideways. I did not have any intention of doing this, but it just seemed like something that was needed. And it came from a moment where I was sitting and journaling, which is something that I really try to create time for, and I'm really bad at making that a practice. So I've been working on doing that more. And then because I have a toddler, I got whisked away in the middle of while I was writing, and I came back and I realized that I was writing about having a really hard moment and trying to hold space that, it's not a bad life, it's just a bad time, all of those kind of things that we tell ourselves. And I'd only gotten through half the word, and I realized that it's mom. And I was like, oh, like I felt like that meant something. That I was like, there's good moments and there's bad moments. And I was like, good mom. Like, even in those hard moments, I am still a good mom. And realizing that we just don't, in my experience, hold enough space for not having judgment. And right around this time, I also was like scrolling Instagram reels, and I saw this woman had posted about come with me on a day as a low-income mom, and, talked about going grocery shopping. And then her daughter was a year old and had fallen asleep, and she's like, and I had I think it was Chick-fil-A. I had a Chick-fil-A gift card, and so I treated myself to some fries and a shake or something. And all the comments were like, you're so selfish. You didn't even share with your baby. I can't even believe you. Terrible mom. She's so selfish. She only thinks about herself. Some people shouldn't be parents. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of animosity. Scroll, scroll, scroll. And then there was someone else who come with me on a girls' date with my baby. And it was a mom and a 1-year-old, and they ended their day at Chick-fil-A. And all the comments were, I can't believe you would feed her that. Do you want her to have diabetes? You're a terrible mom for feeding your kid processed food. My kid only eats, ambrosia salad from the earth and the food of the gods. And I'm like, we literally cannot win. The juxtaposition was so clear that every choice that we make is so scrutinized.
And going to be attacked from every angle always.
Yes. And I think that we don't hold enough space for trying really, really hard and not making it. And that there are times where you can be the best mom. You can be the all organic Montessori, no screen time, whatever, and your kid is still going to fall out in the grocery store. That there's just, and so often we're seeing moms at not a good moment and passing off judgment. And, it's hard that's a big thing for me is I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm failing. Maybe I'm taking on too much in these moments where my daughter has a meltdown or, she won't go to sleep. I'm like, oh, it's because of me. I'm a terrible mom. And I'm like, you're not a bad mom. You're just having a hard moment.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the apparel came from. And I'm actually wearing it right now. So this is
let's have a good look.
It's in reverse right now, but you're a good mom having a hard moment.
I love that. That's awesome. So
thank you.
What is it going to look like? I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, I still don't know. I started it 2 months ago. And so I've been slowly growing it and trying to really identify what I want it to be, because to me it's about way more than apparel. To me, I really want it to be a beacon where you can go I see you, that, someone could see somebody wearing a shirt at Target and be like, she gets it. There's kind of this sisterhood that I've had those experiences of the kid falls out and the other mom gives either the head nod or the you're doing a good job, mom. And that means so much. And so my vision with this apparel line is that when people read these, it feels like that moment. It feels like that, girl, I see you, I'm with you, I am you, and we're all going to get through this. And so it's really about cultivating community. I really just want to create a space where we feel seen and we feel like we can give each other a little bit more grace than the Instagram videos that, either you are or are not killing your child for giving them fast food. So that's really where that came from. Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. I love the idea behind it. The whole fact of just, creating that community of just like, even if it's not spoken, like it's there, you can read it and you're just like, I know, I've been there. I see you. Like you said, we've all been there. We're all going to be there no matter at what stage, right, anybody's at. It's rough. I mean, it's exciting. It's rough. It's like a roller coaster. There's so many highs and lows and just like, growth essentially that happens. So knowing that you're not in it alone, like even just like some merchandise that you're going to have it's awesome. I absolutely love that and respect that. But one thing you mentioned that I'd actually love to hear a little bit more about as well is community. How do you have other mothers around you?
Yeah, I am really lucky. My best friend has an almost 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so she is my wizened, wise woman that I'm like, am I doing a bad job? And she's like, nah, girl, mine are still alive. You're fine. A lot of my community is remote. Because so many of my relationships exist in different places around the world at this point. But I don't have a lot of in-person community right now. And that can be challenging, but it's just kind of par for the course. And it's definitely something that I'm open to with, we go to like story time and, local events like that. But I feel like it can be such a challenge. And I know part of what the purpose of your podcast is to not be like, hi, I'm Olivia's mom. Like, hello, who are you? Yes, you have a kid. Who are you? Tell me 5 things about you. What's your favorite dinosaur?
Right.
We're not talking about the kids right now. I want to know like 5 things about you as a person. And so that part I think is so difficult with trying to form new relationships and create community is not just becoming somebody's mom.
Right.
While that is, maybe the most fulfilling work that we might do from our hearts, it also doesn't serve us or our children to lose our identity. And I'm doing a very good job preaching on my soapbox about things that I struggle to do myself.
Such as?
Because it's hard to maintain your identity. It's hard to not just become somebody's mom. That, as you look to create that community, especially in spaces of parenthood, it's hard to still maintain your identity.
And yet, here you are, Rue. You have proven yourself. You've had a baby. You've created multiple business babies.
Thank you.
Which is incredible. I love to see that. I love to hear just other mothers thrive. I mean, even beyond that, I think you're in an even rougher position just on the relationship standpoint, right? Again, so at Partners Beyond Parenthood, that's also a very large part that, yes, you are more than a mother, but how does your relationship fit into all of that? It's really tough. And I mean, again, I'm going to use the word juggling, but like you're literally doing this as like your masterpiece. You seem to really have, set your foot down, realize what's important to you, what you need to do. And I think a lot of people, a lot of moms in this case, can learn from you.
Thanks.
What do you think, if there's 2 things that you could say to mothers, whether it's just with your identity or relationship, what are 2 things that you could say to them that have helped you get to where you are now?
Yeah, the first is that everything is temporary, whatever phase you're in. And that's something that has really helped with my relationship with my husband as well, is that, this is a season and his job won't always be like this. Our daughter won't always have the high level of needs that are so immediate and so cataclysmic. And then another piece, gosh, I think just to really try and listen to the messages from within, whether that's coming from your gut or your intuition, because that's been a part of, we talked earlier about like how I select clients and, taking on what feels good, that learning how to listen to that part of myself has been incredibly impactful for me, because I have been very good at taking on everything, whether or not it feels good, simply because I can. Shout out to all the girls who felt really seen by Luisa in Encanto when that came out. I was like, give me more donkeys. That, you know, just because you can carry it doesn't mean it's not heavy. And learning to set things that you are able to set down before they come crashing down is incredibly helpful, because, you know, it's one of those things like, if you don't slow down, you will be slowed down. And that is something that I have learned time and time again. I've had mastitis 3 times. Gee, I wonder where that's come from. Yeah, it's been unpleasant. But, you know, trying to find those moments that you're like, this is clearly causing unwellness somewhere in my mind, spirit, body, whatever, and listening to those signs. Like, okay, girl, you got mastitis. That's because you were pushing too hard, that you need to find some downtime. You need to just sit and cuddle your baby for a little while. And finding those points of resistance, hopefully before they turn that serious, to be able to lean into it and go, this doesn't quite feel right for me. I'm going to choose to set this down for now. And then you can choose to, okay, you know, I've set this down for now, and then later I want to pick it back up, so I'm going to set this down, and then I'll pick that back. And, you know, like you said earlier, juggling. And juggling very slowly, picking things up, putting them down, instead of trying to keep all the balls in the air.
Right. Love that analogy. Sounds exactly like what motherhood is.
Truly. Truly, truly.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people can definitely, I mean, people need to hear it over and over again, need to tell it to themselves over and over again, because it's so hard, especially when you're sleep deprived or who knows what you're going through, right? Like there's so many personal items, personal things that come at you all of a sudden. And then on top of having the baby and everything else, definitely feels like a lot. So everything is temporary. Things will move on. Things will get better. Sometimes maybe a bit worse, but it always has to get worse for it to feel or look better as well, right?
Truly.
And, you know, I'd love to encourage it more. And hopefully with this podcast and speaking to other people and seeing how they manage and divide their time between being, you know, a parent, so not just a mother, but also a father, and also bringing work into that, just seeing how you can like connect on that front as well. But yeah, so that's that on my part. I learned after that you also have this amazing production agency, Synivia. Also, again, love the name behind it.
Thank you. That was the moment that like gave me chills when I came up with that.
When I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I've never had like that kind of like ding.
Well, okay, so all right, you opened the can, now it's open. Did you see how that came about? The name?
Yeah,
okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially the enlargement of sound, right? Which you're trying to do that for women in general and like people who just don't have that voice. Forget what gender we have, but you know, you're trying to just give a space for people to have a louder voice. So just the Latin version, I think what you said is the enlargement of sound. Also coupling with the name of your daughter, Olivia.
Yeah, you did some research. I see you. I'm really thrilled to hear that you love it, because that was such a moment. I was like, you know, those little nudges that you get that like you're on the right track.
I mean, that was made
definitely
for you.
One of those. Yeah. No, that was definitely one of those where I was like, okay, I'm exactly where I need to be right now.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I mean, I love the fact that you love the name so much, that it has so much personal resonance with you. Like, it's just, I think when you get those moments, like you feel even more of this passion, like it draws you in. You're just like, oh my God, like I literally am right place, right time. The name came in, like, let's go. This is it. This is, you know, my path.
Thank you for letting me share it, because now it still, even years later, gives me goosebumps when I get to talk about it.
No, absolutely. I think that's super important. And again, it's, you know, such an important message. So
thank you.
You should absolutely share it as much as you can. We need more voices out there to speak about it. So please do keep talking about it and sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, actually, I have one more question for you, if I may.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned that you are done at one kid. May I ask why?
Yeah. You know, we talked about like that I've always wanted to have a family, and that's just kind of what felt right. Biologically, I'm an only child. I've kind of got a found family that I've pulled into myself. And so it just kind of felt like what I was comfortable with. And then my husband lived the first 13 years of his life as an only child. He's got, you know, some step siblings that came into his life, but, you know, and then he's got one sister that was born when he was like 13. So he lived a lot of his life as an only child.
Okay.
And then that's a big factor with the military lifestyle as well, is that like with the chance that he could be gone for 13 months at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to be that significantly outnumbered. Wow. I can do 1v1,
It's
but
that long?
it can be.
Wow.
Yeah, deployments can be anywhere from like 3 to 6 months to over a year.
Okay.
And so I'm like, with the passions that I have, wanting to maintain my business, I don't see within myself, and I think that there are definitely some parents who could rock it out, but within myself, I don't see that is viable for me. I think that I would have to gently set some of those plates down, and those look like my business, because that's, I can't not keep my kid alive, so gotta let the business go.
Yeah.
And also, the opportunities that we're able to give to one kid, really making sure that we're setting her up for success with the 529, and, with the luxuries that we're able to have within reach with one child, are a lot different, and so it feels right. We talked about like maybe 2 would be a good number, and I really commend him, because he immediately defaulted to me, and he was like, what is your body up for? Like after we had the one child, he was like, would you ever want to do it again? I was like, nope, I'm all set. And like I said, I think it's important to talk about that choice didn't come out of trauma. I had a really, really easy birth experience. I had a fairly typical pregnancy. Life was pretty good, because I think a lot of times that narrative is like, oh, you must have had like a really bad situation. Like, no, it comes from a place of absolute peace. It's just this sense of knowing within myself. So that's a really long answer to a really short question.
No, but I think it's so important, because a lot of people kind of get tied up in that, right? Like you see other people having more babies and you think, oh, should I have more? Like, do they need another sibling or whatever? But I think it's so beautiful that both of you have the experience of being, single kids, and understanding what that means to you, and how you can then essentially raise a single kid as well. Because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, how does that work? Is it good or this or whatever? But the fact that you've actually, like you said, made that decision from a place of peace is just incredible. And not just from a place of just like, oh, I don't know, and not right now, it doesn't work, but actually just like, no, I've owned my decision.
Like, we still engage with friends and community and cousins, and just because you don't have a sibling within your nuclear family structure doesn't mean that like you're not gonna go to preschool, or like,
it's also, what does family mean to you, right? Like, family is more than just your parents.
Yeah. Well, and I know so many adult, siblings who are like, yeah, it's my brother, I see him at Christmas. That they don't have a real relationship, but then they have like the chosen family where the group chat's blowing up from, sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, like I said, especially growing up in a queer family, chosen family has been such a strong identifier for me that I'm like I said, I have my sister. Like, she is my sister, and no one can take that bond from us, but we don't share a drop of blood.
Right.
And so my hope as a mom is that my daughter finds that person too. The person that, as a best friend, as a sister, as an auntie, like we were talking about earlier, her heart calls home. And that doesn't have to be someone else that I made.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And amazing that you can stand by that. Again,
thank you.
All the power to you, the fact that you've just been like, no, this is what it is. This is what my body needs or doesn't need. And, I'm good with that. And it's awesome that both of you are on the same page.
Yeah, no, I really commend my husband for defaulting to me, because I know that like a lot of people don't see it that way. That,
well, I wish the best, absolutely the best for you guys. I hope you get to spend as much time as possible together, the quality time, being present whenever you can. So yeah, with that, I would like to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being on the show, Partners Beyond Parenthood. It's been great listening to what you've gone through, everything that you're building. I can't wait to see the apparel line coming out, hearing more about that, seeing your community grow, and seeing how you can help more women and non-binary people be a part of this podcasting space.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think that these conversations have to happen. And so I'm very grateful that you are holding space for them to happen. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next 10 episodes.
Me too.
All right, we'll circle back and report in.
Right.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.